All right, good morning. I'm so excited to share this topic with you. This is a topic that I am very passionate about. It's been on my mind for probably over a year now. I'm finally just now putting it into a format in which I can share it with others other than just talking off the cuff about it. But I want to give you like a little prelude. In order to be able to fully explain this, I'm kind of going to have to reveal my own mess-ups and how I learned this stuff. So please don't take it as a self-glorifying opportunity to talk about me, okay? You'll see towards the end of this, exactly what I did is what you shouldn't do. But at the beginning of this, that might be a little confusing. So please don't take it as like, this guy talking about his bio? Is not what it's, that's not what it is going to be in the end. You'll be able to see that. So the title today is Witness Through Fitness, right? Witness Through Fitness. And fitness has been something that's been a huge part of my life for a very long amount of time. However, I went about it in a kind of a funky way. And I'm grateful that we have a Father who will guide us and who can take the most misdirected paths and put them back on track. And one of the verses I hang on to is Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. There's another one I hang on to, Genesis 50:20. And this is Joseph speaking to his brothers in Egypt. He says, "But as for you, you meant it for evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive." Those two verses are verses that I hang on to when I sometimes step back and I realize, not trying to have self-pity, but sometimes there's moments in our lives where we're like, I am such a wreck. Am I the only one that's ever experienced that? Like, I am like a living train wreck. And these types of verses really give me hope, right? So, okay, let's go ahead and tell you about my journey, right? So here, this is me at 5 months old. A little bit puffier in the cheeks. I didn't know a whole lot about fitness back then, but I knew how to definitely celebrate New Year, right? Here's me at 3.5 with my sister. Somebody left some plastic stuff on the ground, so we were picking it up. As you can see, I didn't know much about fitness. I knew how to play, right? Then you can see this is where the fitness need came in. Here's a pale white bag of bones, me at 10 years old, just rippling with muscle, with my little brother who's now 24. So I was born in the mid-'80s, and I had influences that were very, very different than me, right? Like Arnold. And I had another one over here. I don't know if any of you guys recognize this one down at the bottom. These are all silly movies. Looking back at them, they're so silly. But these are the movies of the day. And I probably shouldn't have been watching any of them, but I did. And one of the bottoms called Big Trouble in Little China, if anybody's ever heard of that. I gotta be honest. When I put this together, I laughed so much. I was like, first off, movies have come so far. I mean, like, just the way they made them back then compared to now. But then second off, like, why was I attracted? Like, it's just, how sometimes you look back on stuff and you're like, who was I? What was I thinking? So the funny thing is the top one, Arnold, he's what a lot of little boys want to be like, maybe at least around my age bracket during that time. They wanted to be big and strong, right? And in the one at the bottom, the guy drove a truck. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then the smaller Chinese guy right there, well, he could do flips. He could kick. He could run up walls and stuff. And in the movie, he does that. I idolized that stuff. Now, keep in mind, I grew up in a house in which, Christ wasn't there. So these are the things I kind of clung on to. And they really imprinted on me early on. And the funny thing about it is the one character right here, if you see him in the white, he wore a shirt at one point that was a tank top. And it had it looked like an orange, but it wasn't an orange. I don't know what it was. I remember when I was 6, I would just go I took a tank top, and I took my crayons, and I colored on my shirt, and I dressed up as this guy, because this, to me, was something I wanted to go ahead and be like, right? I had a desire for fitness, but I didn't. This is the best I knew, you know what I mean? So later on in my life, I kind of got the opportunity to actually start learning about it and using it for a productive manner. So that's when I got in the Marines. And then as you can see over to the right, I actually found some other ding-dong guys like myself who also like that kind of stuff, and we were in a happy place together. We were in like company, right? And that did me well. That did me really, really well for a long time, because, again, Christ really wasn't in my life. I think probably right around the time I got in the Marines, I came to know Christ. But I definitely knew how to lift weights. I definitely knew how to run. I knew how to do those types of things. And I didn't care anything about anything else. To me, that's exactly what was important, the way I had been raised, the way those movies had shown me. And, I was really looking for an example, but this is kind of all I was able to go ahead and do. And I even got even further into stuff. And some of you know this about me. I got into endurance racing and totally destroyed my body. It was great. It was fun. It was a great stress reliever. But, again, you can kind of sometimes be your own worst enemy in these sports. A lot of these sports are infamous for just driving yourself into the ground, driving into the ground. As you can see, as we go on here, the trend is it started off as something good and pure. Then it just starts being just totally destructive after a while, right? Then I started going even further, and I got into competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and my neck would lock up, and I wouldn't be able to move for a week, right? And that was just part of it, and I loved it. And then I started doing even more. I started swimming, and I became a Marine Corps swim instructor and would hold our breath. We would hold our breath for minutes underwater, so long to where when you would attempt to go home and go to sleep, your head would just be throbbing with the most wicked headache you've ever experienced. You're like, can't really figure out why I got this headache, but oh well. And just the next day, go back and do the same thing all over again. Just never had the wires connect, you know what I mean? So, given long enough, I had some real issues. I had some major injuries, okay? Neck, locked up my neck quite a few times. That's my right shoulder. I have 8 anchors in this right shoulder. Left elbow has been hyperextended many, many times. I've had surgery on my left knee, and I got medically separated out of the Marines for my left ankle, jumping out of too many planes. So, something that initially started off very, very, probably somewhat noble, to want to stay in shape, to want to, build your body and do these types of things. Because to me, you got to remember, when I was 6, I connected the dots of, well, if you're a physical specimen like this, then you could also be, super cool and, these hotshot. I had no other example to go off of. So I went down what I thought was the best road, and then all those injuries happened. So then what happens next? When your self-identity is wrapped up in your physical prowess and then that goes away? Depression. I don't know if anybody's ever been there with athletically derived injuries or just from other things, but if you have something that makes what you think who you are into that ability, and then that ability goes away, well, it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard. Not to mention, I had almost a 12-year career in the Marines that got cut short because of my left ankle, and simultaneously, my athletic career got cut short. So it was, who am I? Whoa, is this really, how can this guy who's been active his whole life function with those abilities now gone? And they may never, ever come back. So, what does depression lead to? What does depression lead to? At least the bad choices. And then what do bad choices cause? Bad choices can have a follow-on cascade of injury, chronic disease, stagnation in life, not really going kind of where you want to go, addiction, divorce, obesity, substance abuse, crime, all kinds of stuff from bad choices. And it's not like necessarily I think had the fabric to have any of these right off the bat, but I could have set myself up through incorrectly balancing my own desire to be physically fit, and then when that falls away, to now be open to the temptations of the enemy to go ahead and fall into these. Now, because we're in a safe place, and I know we don't judge anybody here, for me, it was injury, it was stagnation, and it was divorce. And when the big D hit me, I realized, okay, I'm like way over here. I'm putting way too much effort into one area of my life because I completely missed the mark in order to get divorced. I mean, where am I doing wrong? Like, how could somebody who's figured it out over here mess it up over here? And I was a Christian during this time, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm really, really out of whack. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how did I get here? So, I like charts. I like numbers and stuff like that. So I made a chart to kind of reflect what I'm talking about. So imagine this is my health, right? At that time in my life. This is my health. My physical health was awesome. But my nutritional health, I was eating cleaner. But I definitely am in a completely different, better place now than I used to be. My spiritual health, I knew Christ, but I didn't fully know Christ to the level I should have known him. My intellectual health, I wasn't going to school or nothing. I would read a book, you know what I mean? Definitely wasn't where I could have been. My relational health, it was pretty bad. In the Marine Corps, not blaming it all on them, but, it's a little bit of a different environment. And then there's a transition when you get out, and relational aspects are usually pretty weak. And then my emotional health was in the gutter pretty much. I mean, it was horrible. But I'm thinking to myself, I was this awesome athlete trying to become a professional triathlete. Anything I touched athletically, I did so well. How can I figure it out so much over here, feel truly in my heart that I did surrender myself to Christ, but then have so many other things in my life just fallen in the gutter? Like, how in the world? Not only how in the world, but how do I fix this? So, a number of years back, I came across something that really has helped me, and that was the Seventh-day Adventist health message. I didn't know anything about that, and again, don't judge me, I'm just being completely real here. I remember when I first came to Christ, at the time we were living in the South. We were living in Mississippi, and you'll see in just a couple slides that once I started, it was actually really interesting. I saw like a map of the United States when I was pulling some of the statistics I'm going to share with you in a minute. And if you don't already know, I'm going to spoil it for you and tell you. The most amount of overweight and obese Americans are typically like in the South, right? Especially like areas where they got like a country accent. And that's where I was at. And I remembered, and again, I'm just being real with you here, right? I remember when I first came to know Christ, I had grown up completely lost and secular up until that point. I remember thinking to myself, this feels like the right thing to do, to go ahead and surrender my life over to Christ. I knew there was something more than just going to church, right? But I do remember in the back of my head thinking to myself, it's kind of a hard thing to hear from this guy. And I'm just being real with you, okay? It's kind of a hard thing to hear from this guy because he's asking me to trust what he's saying because I don't know anything about the Bible. He's asking me to trust what he's saying about an issue that is highly, highly complicated and has huge implications, something known as salvation, but at the same time, something that nobody really debates, how to take care of our body. He's in dire need of help. And it took away from his witness with me. Again, I was a simple-minded 17-year-old, right? Very, very shallow. But I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if I can really trust what this guy's saying because, goodness gracious, does he not see his own need? Fast forward many years, and I fell into the same category. It's just I was strong where he was weak, but I was definitely imbalanced. And today, I have come to know this Seventh-day Health message as something that can potentially be there to help us as Christians who are already walking with Christ, but to walk better with him, okay? Seventh-day Health message, for those of you who don't know, it's got 8 tenets to it. Diet, exercise, water, light, balance, air, rest, and Jesus. There's an organization over in California known as the New Start program. Many of you have probably heard it. However, I took a couple of their terms and I put what I thought was a more modern spin on it. Example being balance. Have a balance in life. They use the word temperance. I thought that was a little bit of an older word, so I changed it. But these have been around for a while. I don't want you to think I'm, for those of you who are familiar with this, that I've reinvented these or anything like that. I just kind of just modernized a couple of the words. So these, I personally have found that with trying to learn more about these and implementing these in my life, it's dramatically changed my level of balance, and it's helped me to understand that my self-worth isn't wrapped up in how many pull-ups I can do or how fast I can run a mile or how long I can hold my breath or any of that kind of stuff. It's helped me to realize and to keep it in balance. Those are all beautiful gifts that when used properly to glorify the kingdom of God can do nothing but give not only glory to him, but in return just show me that my self-worth is wrapped up in him. And that's so much more rewarding. So there's a verse that also helps me to realize the importance of taking care of this thing, right? 1 Corinthians 6:19. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not of your own? You are not your own. I didn't always fully understand that, but I kind of look at it now as I am responsible for somebody else's finances in their company. I don't do that, but let's say, for instance, I was like the treasurer, right? Well, how would I treat somebody else's every penny, dollar, and every transaction if it was someone else's as opposed to if it was mine? If it was mine, I would likely get sloppy with it. I just do whatever. Hey, it's mine. I've earned it. It's not a big deal. I can do whatever I want, if I want to spend. But if it's somebody else's, now all of a sudden the priority goes to a completely different level because now I feel like it's not mine and I'm accountable to someone else for its livelihood. And this verse has just helped me to look at this body. No longer is just how much abuse can I put it through and how many sports can I go into and how can I get a temporary high off of doing whatever kind of cool thing I'm doing in the moment, that now I understand that this is here for a purpose. This brain is here for a purpose. This mouth is here for a purpose. And maybe in my circumstance or maybe in my life, that is to speak hope into somebody's life or to tell them about Christ or whatever it is. But it's not simply for the recreational fun that I wanted to have with it, or the enjoyment out of food, or the enjoyment of whatever it was, that it is a sacred temple. And I didn't realize that. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I got so far off track. There's an expression out there. Many of us have probably heard it. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So how does that apply here? How can we get to the point to where, unlike myself, you don't have 8 anchors in your shoulder, or you don't have to have 2 surgeries on the same leg? How do you get to that point? Well, you stop it before it ever happens, okay? As a result, this is where I come to that point at the beginning where I told you guys I'm very excited to tell you about this. This is something that God has put on my heart for probably, like I said, over a year now, because I've noticed there has been a little bit of a void in our health message and how we implement it. Let's see how bad the situation is first before I tell you about that. 2016. 254 million American adults were in the United States, approximately 254, okay? That's U.S. Census Bureau. Out of those 254, 71% were overweight or obese. And then out of those 254 million, 57.3 million had gym memberships. Now, we all know that doesn't mean we're using them. Me, for one, too. For the last probably 4 months that I've had my membership, I haven't done anything with it but just give somebody free money. But it's a little bit of an indicator. It's a little bit of an indicator that there's hope there within our country. Despite how bad these numbers are, 71%, there are people out there that want to do better. People that were like myself that want to do better, but just may not know how. And they may be trying all they could or can. They may be going diligently to the gym. They may be responding to all the light that they have on how to take care of the temple of God. But there could potentially be a better way even still. And I wish I would have known that. Maybe I wouldn't have all these injuries right now if I would have known about this. Goodness, just balance alone would have probably helped me. So this is something that is bad and is a wake-up call, but this should also be hopeful. To me, that 22% down there, that's hope, right? And that's a lot of people still. I mean, there's a lot of people to begin with, but there's hope out there. There's so many gyms around in this area. There's people who want to get better at this kind of stuff. So this is the void that I've seen. And let me explain it to you, right? Witnessing through fitness. We've heard of the New Start program. We've heard of the Adventist health message, right? But what things kind of come to mind when you hear that? To me, there's two things that come to mind. Number one, helping people who have chronic disease, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, stuff like that, and walking and working in your garden. That would have never reached me. I didn't have any of that. That was a total just buzzkill for me. So you're telling me you want me to go walk and work in my garden, and that's supposed to make me better? No. That wouldn't have targeted me. I don't think that'll target a lot of people who have those gym memberships, honestly. That is almost once it's too gone. That's kind of treating the problem. I'm more or less trying to say there's a void in our health message for prevention for people who don't yet have chronic disease, for people who maybe aren't even overweight yet, but their lifestyle is going to drive them to either maybe become overweight or, like me, become divorced or do something else in which those bad choices are then going to start to creep up. How do we reach 254 million adult Americans before it gets bad? How do we stop 71% of overweight and obese becoming 72%? How do we reach them before they get to that point? This is where I've seen a huge void. So, imagine this, okay? And I am not the one really inventing this. I'm kind of just stealing it from my years and years and years of racing and competitiveness I've seen, and I'm kind of just rebranding it. I'm thinking to myself, how much more powerful it could be if we have the blessing of God and we have the understanding of the one who wrote the owner's manual for this temple and then implement it in the same way the world's already positively responded. Imagine if we put on events, right? That right there, I did that race. That's Ironman, Florida. You can't tell, that's the Gulf of Mexico. 2.4 miles we swam in the Gulf of Mexico. There's 2,300 people in the water at one time right there. We're nuts. What are we doing? You know what I mean? What are we doing? I mean, it's cool looking back on it, but I'm like a dad now. Like, why would I ever risk that? You know what I mean? I could just swim 2.4 miles in a pool and be safe, but whatever. I did it, and there's so many people who are into this kind of stuff. Marathons, half marathons, Ironmans. Who's heard of those Spartan challenges, those endurance races and stuff, where it's just, I mean, you could set up a course right here. All it is just a bunch of hodgepodge. They jump the fence and, climb up that cross thing out there and don't get poked by the bougainvilleas. And at the end of it, we're going to give you a shirt. And people pay like good money. It's just mind-blowing. People want the challenge. It's kind of silly, but I mean, I'm the number one culprit of it. I mean, who knows how much money I've dumped into that kind of silliness. But the point is, there's people out there, and we're not reaching them. We're waiting until They completely are just eaten up with depression and anxiety. Their life is completely falling apart. They're on 9 different meds and, like, hey, let me tell you how to go vegan. Well, I am vegan, but there's so much more to it. My goodness, there's so much more to it. Also, if we put on events in which we properly assessed everybody's physical capabilities, okay, not just by putting on like a triathlon or anything like that really only targets, one energy system of just endurance. But if we had an assessment, and this idea is somewhat still in development, but so far, kind of what I've come up with is something to where it's like, everybody grew up, I'm sure, middle school, high school, growing up, United States of America, everybody's run a mile before. At one point in our life, we've had a time, somebody put a clock on us, whether we be in school or whatever it was, we've run a mile. And it's a very unintimidating distance, right? And it's a very practical distance. When's the last time in real life any of us have had to run over a mile, not by choice? Many, many decades, be willing to bet. Okay? Something also, too, that would test one's endurance, but also something that would test one's strength, okay? Because as we age, one of the best things that we can do to maintain lean muscle mass is to do compound, multiple muscle groups, very heavy lifting, heavy in the sense of relative, okay? I don't want to blow anybody's back out. But you need to stimulate those muscles under a hard load in order to go ahead and get healthy levels of human growth hormone and testosterone secreted in the body, and those are the youthful hormones within the body. So you have to have an element of strength, and you need to have that. Also, how many of us would potentially fall into those two categories willingly, but we know we can't even bend over and touch our toes? That's a bad one. That's something I really struggle with, right? That's important. There's nothing more, in my opinion, and this one guy, uneducated, just has messed it all up opinion, nothing more that will make you feel more youthful than being flexible, okay? Look at a little kid. You could have my daughter's 5. She could probably lay on her back here, let her head hang off the back, fall asleep, and 2 hours later wake up and just pop right up and she's fine. We would be in a cast from our neck to our toes if we did that, okay? Flexibility it's a beautiful thing once you get to it, to where it's like the body isn't now, muscle groups are fighting against muscle groups, and then the joints in the middle, and the joints getting all pulled, and imagine if that war didn't happen within the body. And then the final thing I was going to say, so far I've said 3 elements, and the 4th element I would say to measure physical fitness would be coordination, right? How many of us, if I say her name correctly, Simone Biles, do we know who she is? One of the greatest Olympian, I think she's the greatest Olympian. Well, no, I think Michael Phelps was, but I think she's the greatest gymnast ever. I could be wrong with that. Don't judge me on that, but we all know who she is. How amazing is it to have something this wide to be able to flip on and then to land on perfectly? Coordination is very important, because you know what coordination can also do? How many of us have rolled an ankle before, or fallen down on concrete, or done anything like that on accident, right? Coordination is what's going to help the body to go ahead and fire those muscles to lock it up before you just blah and just fall right over and have some kind of joint injury or whatever it is, hit your head. Coordination is very important, and it can be developed. It's not like you're just born clumsy forever and ever and you're just doomed to be clumsy. God has blessed us to be able to go ahead and improve on a lot of things within reason, within reason. We can get a lot better probably than we give ourselves credit for. But we had some kind of physical assessment, right, where we put on these events, right? Then we followed it up with coaching and teaching, okay? Coaching and teaching, trying to educate people. We got them here. Let's say, for instance, I've put on one of these before, and I think I had like 30 people show. Wasn't a whole lot of people, but it's always like that the first year. And imagine, you got 30 people there, right? So what are we going to do? We're just going to go ahead and just run them through this 1 mile and make them do some stuff, and hey, touch your toes and all kinds of stuff. And then just like, and then just, hey, see you later, God bless. Like, no, we got them there. We got them there. I used to be in the car business too, and once you got them there, once you got them on the lot, you don't let them go. Unless they are pulling their arm and running away from you, right? We got them there. Let's teach them, potentially, whatever they want to learn, however much they want to learn, about how there is such a better way than just simply going to the, how there's simply such a better way than just becoming a vegan, how there's simply just such a better way than, just all these other different aspects of one or two of the 8 health messages, 8 of the health principles. When you put them all together, it has a multiplying effect because Christ is now involved in it, and explaining that to people as much as they want to learn. Then, because we've got them there, and if they're interested, we welcome them to our church. We sit there and we reach them in an area in which they already have an interest, and we give them the information that they desire. And then if they want to go ahead and learn more and participate in that community, because we are equally leading by example, and we are a rare bunch out of the country who has a bad habit, but within the church, there's something kind of different there. We're trying to live this by example, and they want to be a part of that. And we offer this, okay? So we're reaching out to a group of people who may not necessarily even want to connect the two dots that church and fitness have anything to do with each other. And we're showing them, not only does it have to do that, but the world is starting to figure that out. A couple of you may have Netflix. Has anybody ever heard of a movie called Game Changers? Right? This movie, a couple of you in here, I told you about it already, right? This movie doesn't even fully emphasize properly the way that we emphasize it 1/8 of the health message. It's a movie that's pretty much about a lot of high-level athletes in multiple disciplines that have kind of stumbled upon the idea that animal products aren't maybe the best to put in your body. Maybe there could be a better way. Not saying it's horrible, but it can get out of hand, and there could be a better way. Just like a Corvette. How many of us know what a Corvette is? A Corvette will run on cheap fuel, but it'll run better on the fuel the manufacturer made it to run on. Okay? That's kind of where I'm going with this. This isn't necessarily a, you got to go ahead and be an animal rights activist type thing. There's a better way. Who wouldn't want to have the better way? You know what I mean? Within reason, as you want to chip away at them. But the point is, the world is going crazy over this movie. And there's other movies out there like it. And people are going, this is amazing. Latest science shows. And the first time I saw that, I got a little irritated because I'm like, they're ripping our idea off. Well, we're not doing anything with it. This is the void I'm talking about. The world and people in that community are looking for the edge. Now, they're still competitive, and that's a different subject about competition. But the point is, though, we're meeting them where they're at, right? We're showing them there is a better way out there. So, I forgot to mention this. On top, I'm still working through this idea, and I would love any kind of feedback as you guys come up with this kind of stuff, and if you have any at some point later on, right? On top of physically assessing people, we could also give them an online questionnaire. I mean, you're not going to be able to sit there and physically assess somebody of, hey, how much sunlight you get each day? Like, I'm going to sit here and measure. Like, no, you got to ask them a question, right? Touch on the other areas as well. Okay, this was the assessment I was telling you about. The 4 areas: strength, endurance, flexibility, and coordination. Okay? You would give them a cumulative score. I don't know what it is about it, but I heard an expression one time, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get improved, or something like that. It's almost like the world has accustomed us to having to have some kind of ranking system. Not a ranking system against others, but a ranking system against ourselves, from where we started to where we are eventually going to go. But having something to where it's like a score. I mean, we're used from kids having A, B, C, D, and F. Like, there's got to be a score. So you get, in a way, you almost going to kind of come up with a questionnaire with physical assessment data, put it together, and give a value for each of it, right? And then off of that, have a number in which you can go ahead and then assess your progress. Again, once we have them there, we give classes. Maybe just short 10-minute classes, right? We've got them here. Everybody's sweaty. They're all drinking drinks, doing whatever they're doing, eating some oranges, stuff like that. And then we start throwing this kind of thing on. Maybe just 10 minutes for all 8 of them. Not all 8 of them, but each one 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm still working on these ideas. But as you can see, you got them there. They're obviously interested already. And we're going to go ahead and teach them about how God shows us that there are these 8 elements that make us not only more competitive, but can make us happier people. And then give an exact point of contact at one of our churches, okay? They don't just leave out of the... If they want to, they can, okay? We're not going to be like car salesmen, what we used to do with that, and, like, I'm now your second cousin that since you won the lottery, like, you're never going to let go of me. No, if they want to have a connection and they want to learn more, there's an exact point of contact, not just an open-ended, invitation. Hey, just go ahead and come back, service is at 10 o'clock. No, an exact point of contact, because this is ministering to people who are gonna feel more bought. Anybody does. I mean, I think it's kind of human nature. You're gonna feel more bought in if you feel that there's somebody else there that you can go directly to. Okay. And then the final thing would be additional coaching for those who are more ambitious. Let's say, for instance, somebody's like, I don't spend any time with God. I consider myself a Christian. But I have a horrible routine. Or I only get 4 to 5 hours of sleep at night. Or I don't believe in that whole weekly rest thing. I believe in a daily rest, but I don't believe in the whole weekly rest thing. Or I watch the movie Game Changers, and I've heard these people are faster and stronger because they changed their diet. I want to learn more about it. Whatever that individual's need is, now we can go ahead and we can meet it before they ever get to the point of having chronic disease, before they ever get to the point of falling into that 71% and being overweight or obese or anything like that. So one of the final verses that I've now learned over this journey of completely screwing my body up and then now having to patch it all back together like Mr. Potato Head is 1 Corinthians 10:31. Therefore, whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Because these bodies are on rent. These are on rent. What we do with it is really what's going to set us up in a lot of other decisions that we have afterwards. Will we make bad choices? Will we make good choices? Will we use to glorify ourselves like I used to do? Or will we use to glorify the one who made it? So whatever it is that we do it to the glory of God. As a result, we're promised. John 10:10. Christ tells us, I have come that they may have life and they may have it more abundantly. Okay? This is a message of hope. This is a message of hope for those who are already somewhat fit to be able to get fitter. And for those who have never attempted to get fit to start the change. This is a message of hope. This is absolutely not a message of you must do these things in order to go ahead and reap that, because some of us I genuinely didn't know there was a thing called balance. I grew up pretty much in the Marine Corps professionally. There's no such thing as an extremist. You're just better. If this guy does it for 6 hours and you did it for 5, he's just better. You know what I mean? So a lot of us don't necessarily know where we're going wrong. However, there's a better way. There's a better way. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I hope this has been something that has been able to encourage you wherever you're at in your own fitness journey. And if you are to the point to where you do want to make that change, realize there's resources out there, okay? At least for this area, I would love to be one of them for anybody here. However, wherever you're at, in whatever area of your life that you may think that through this health message you could have improvement, realize that Christ is the number one thing that's going to be able to help you and drive you towards success. That without that, you're just another dude or gal just trying a new thing. Let us pray. Dear Jesus, thank you for everything. Lord, we just pray so much that you guide us, Lord, and that you be the image that we see when we look in the mirror, Lord, and we compare ourselves to your perfect glory, to your perfect example, so that we not compare ourselves to others, but we compare ourselves to the promise and to the hope of who we can be through all the things that you've told us in your written word. Thank you for this health message. Thank you for everything that you've done, Lord Jesus. Please help us to take this and to be a living example in our communities around us. In your name we pray, amen.